Hi, I'm Ali Paterson and welcome to today's Paytech Show. Today, we're going to be learning about the fascinating speed of payments innovation in Ghana. The whole of the African continent seems to be leapfrogging many other markets with its huge mobile phone adoption and lack of legacy infrastructure holding it back. We wanted to tap into this exciting ecosystem, so have brought in two experts in the African payment scene to give us the lowdown. Joining us today is Kwadwo Ntim from Ghana Interbank Settlement Systems and HPS's own Abdeslam Alaoui. Are there any particular trends that you've noticed in Ghana in comparison to the rest of Africa?
Yes, in fact, Ghana has been or is a pioneer in many aspects of what they do. And today, the Ghanian model is being followed by other countries in their internal operations or the way Ghana is managed in the country and what it offers to the local people, but also the way the GIBS and the Ghanaian ecosystem has been able to interface with the fintechs outside Ghana, and how fintechs in Europe or fintechs in North America are able to use that services that GIBS is offering in Ghana to have instant transfer from an account in the UK or in the US down to the deep village in Ghana, and all this in an instant way. This is really magic, if I can say so.
Can you tell me a little bit about the payments ecosystem in Ghana and some of the trends that you yourself have noticed there in the last few years?
That's interesting you ask. I'd say in a nutshell, the payments ecosystem in Ghana is pretty fragmented with different kinds of players within the space. Particularly, we do have the banks, which were the first logical operators within the space by way of the nature of their business. And then came in our savings and loans companies and so on and so forth, which were offshoots of the. But with the expansion of mobile technology and technology in general, we have observed the movement of the mobile technology operators, that is the telcos, into the space to us as mobile money operators, and I'll explain down the line. And then we also have the presence of financial technology companies, which started out by providing technology solutions to finance houses, but in the process have tried to take advantage of the opportunities within the space to operate in a quasi-financial service companies structure up to now. So I'd say in a nutshell, it's pretty fragmented. However, as it happens in a lot of the cases, because technology and business typically tends to run ahead of the regulator, there are attempts to streamline the operation and bring some regulation into being. Because in the absence of that, then we all run some risk of the financial system being compromised, or people having their funds disappearing into places that they do not intend it to be. Or for that matter, sometimes a misuse of the systems within the market. And so, yes, it's fragmented, but the regulation is gradually coming in, albeit slowly, to streamline the operation of everybody within the ecosystem.
We talked a little bit before about interoperability, but how critical is it to have a standardized interoperability within the payments ecosystem going forward in an increasingly digital world? Because I mean, it'd be a lot of fun if everyone was using different standards, but I imagine it could be quite chaotic.
So it's in fact, we have two risks in when we are talking about interoperability, or three risks. The first one is that it is so complex that you have only few players that are really interoperable. Second risk is that you have to be able to gather a large number of players. You lower your requirement, and therefore you only interoperate in a very simple form. And the third one, always the cost. So for us, we have always been pushing a gradual interoperability and make sure that we do not wait the last one to be able to play with the first one. So in any deployment of interoperable systems in the whole projects that we have done, and there are a dozen of them in various countries, we have always pushed a deployment strategy where we would play with the fastest one to make sure that the slowest one will catch up, but not the other way around, where everybody will play at the pace of the slowest one. Now, on the other aspect is, how can we deploy an interoperable system, and should we wait for all the services to be interoperable to play the interoperability or not? So here, really the critical mass achievement is the key success factor. So if we go back to Ghana has been extremely interesting case, because they have been able to start with the fastest one that used to be the smallest one, but at the same time the biggest one came with the volume and came with very rich functionalities and came with the revenue, which is in fact the game itself.
I'd say it's super critical for standardization to be thrown in there. And indeed, that exercise has already started with the involvement of GIPS within that space. And so today, if you wanted to integrate into GIPS systems, there's a specific requirement of you, both from a technical and from the business side. And once you comply, and to the extent that all other entities that are connected to GIPS are complying, then there's a certain minimum standard that the general industry is complying with. However, I'm also saying that it's critical because much as there's a standard in place, by virtue of the gaps that were within the market and which have been taken advantage of by various players, they try to maintain those systems that are not necessarily integrated into the national switch infrastructure. And to that extent, the standards on that side are different from what we have at the center. What it also means is that the expectations of customers and businesses are dependent on what kind of infrastructure is serving you or providing you that service. And again, then the quality of the service also comes into question on the back of that. Plus, the attendant risks that may be associated with those pieces of infrastructure that are operating at those varied standards. Remember that the standards are put in place to ensure consistency of a customer's expectation, plus ensuring that risk is minimized for all parties. And so to the extent that other parties are operating under different standards, which is not consistent with the center, then their levels of risk may be slightly different. But like I said earlier, standardization and regulation are coming in gradually to normalize the ecosystem so that we would have a consistent expectation as customers of these systems and services.
How critical is the mobile phone and internet technology for this ecosystem?
I'd say both are absolutely critical. Critical in the sense that for you to be able to deliver a service, it must either go to a beneficiary of the service, or that service, the beneficiary must be able to come to consume that service that you are providing. And as we know, the mobile handset today is the most ubiquitous access point to various services available. And even more importantly for us, the internet has become the cheapest source of communication to facilitate the interaction between a customer and a processor, which is what results in the interoperability service that we are trying to achieve. In fact, one of the primary reasons why in 2007 we resorted to the investment into the national biometric switch infrastructure was that it had the capability to work offline. Offline in the sense that you could go to a point of sale terminal with a biometric card and be able to complete a transaction without having to make a communication connection to any other party outside the terminal. And that was in appreciation of the fact that communication was a major problem within our space. Coming on from 2007 down to today, communication has improved significantly. But the improvements in the communication doesn't necessarily imply or translate into usage. Because if communication has improved and is still expensive, then you will find people still resorting to the use of cash. And so to the extent that internet provides a cheaper alternative or puts pressure on network service providers to provide cheaper solutions, that is absolutely crucial to what we do. And most importantly, we need to bear in mind that the reason why people transmit money for anything is to make a payment. And so at the point of making a payment, every customer or user would ask themselves that question: what is it costing me to make the payment? And if it's costing me much more than it would have cost me to physically transport myself to the source of the service, then I might as well use the difference in value to be able to do that. And so having efficient internet communication is absolutely crucial to what we are doing in this space at this time.
There's a lot of, around the world, and particularly in Africa, different local payment methods. How can you guys at HPS help with interoperability of payments globally?
So it's a very good question, and in fact we have several initiatives that we used to have even before this digital payment, where we were only on the card, and we have a very great example with the switch in the West Africa that is covering 8 countries. But to come back to the digital interoperability, we have had this as a structuring obligation or a structuring factor in all what we did. And today we have various initiatives that are being deployed in different countries to enable an international interoperability with addressing diverse needs. And here we are addressing the remittance business that is today a large business in Africa. We are addressing some specific needs for specific travelers, and all this into a diverse platform, in the sense of being in the center as the engine, but being able to interoperate with different actors that are either competitor of HPS or partners of HPS, fintechs, banks, telcos, PSPs. And the idea here is that this interoperability, to be successful, needs to go with the word diversity, diversity of actors, diversity of customers, and diversity of transactions to make sure that we have this critical mass that will make all this viable.
HPS has provided for us the central infrastructure, which is the core switching infrastructure that allows us to switch and route transactions from one party to the other, and therefore be able to move towards this objective of interoperability. But even more importantly, they have represented a partner who is willing to listen with an open mind and try to answer the questions that we put to them. And so even though we initially bought a switch infrastructure, which is typical of any processing company trying to switch transactions between an issuer and an acquirer from an ATM point of view, we have leveraged on this infrastructure to be able to build today what we are calling our interoperability infrastructure. And obviously this wasn't part of the original solution that they were providing us. But in the interaction following our engagement and the acquisition of the HPS Power Card solution, we've been able to add on layer by layer and gotten to this point. And so for us, they are not just our solution vendor, but they are our partners as well.
I always find, and this is one of the things I absolutely love about Africa as a whole, is Africa seems to leapfrog a lot of technologies. But then at the flip side, you then have mature markets. I'm thinking Japan and Germany, very cash focused. Do you think there's scope for a more mature payments market to look at, for example, payments innovation in Ghana and then implement the ideas deployed there?
I think the leapfrog way is important, and we have seen it in various successful cases where some countries have not been through the coal industry to be able to have energy today, and in the IT or in the payment space, it is absolutely the case, and we have seen it in Africa, especially in payment, where the most of the industries are not going through the whole path that mature markets have gone through. From our perspective, it doesn't matter where the innovation is coming from, because it could apply to many markets, and it's not because it is coming from an emerging market that it cannot be applied to a mature market. And we have seen this, and we have experimented this by proposing things that have been thought for an emerging market, and when we have applied in Europe, in the US, in Far East, and in fact this logic has come from Southeast Asia or from Africa, and this has been extremely valuable and has brought a lot of positive surprise to the customers. So for us, it's really an important thing, and we have built our product logic around this, and we are retrofitting into our base platform any innovation that we have done in any country, and therefore it is made available to the others as a standard feature in the product. So this is something that is not only we believe in, but it's definitely generating revenue for HPS.
Do you feel that in Ghana you've got the opportunity to become more innovative and basically have a stronger payments ecosystem than the likes of Cash Abdeslam, Germany or Japan?
I'd say yes, we do have an opportunity to innovate, because of course you don't have the burden of legacy infrastructure that requires you to spend additional money beyond what you've already invested. And so from an infrastructure point, you're allowed to experiment with new and innovative technology that as they evolve, to evolve your payment system. The crunch of the matter is the adoption, which would justify the investment into the infrastructure. And particularly with the fragmentation that we have, we are not building that critical mass that would help improve the infrastructure. And so we are making revenues that allow several different participants to be moving their infrastructure in bits and bobs instead of having 2 or 3 that are doing so much work in terms of providing infrastructure that meets the required quality of service thresholds that would be appreciable to our customers.
Well, that brings us to the end of today's episode of the Paytech Show. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us today in the digital studio, and you can watch the rest of the upcoming HPS payment series of the Paytech Show over at fintechf.com and of course on our YouTube and LinkedIn channels. See you all soon.